All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. It's really a pleasure to have you all join us. My name is John Kiruz, and I'm a coach trainer at Coach Transformation Academy. Today, I'll be your host for this session of Transformational Tuesdays, and we've got an incredible guest with us who's so honestly very just modest and relaxed, Mr. Raymond Miranda, but he just wants me to call him just Raymond. So Raymond here, who has a way cooler hairstyle than me, is there with us. And there's so many amazing things to say about Raymond. To be honest, I was asking like, how do I manage to summarize it? So if you take a look, we're gonna share some really wonderful information, but you can also see in the chat, for those who like to read, just a little bit about his overall background, because I'm really confident this is going to be a very rich session, hopefully, God willing, for all of us. So Raymond, as we wait to just set up things technically, if that's okay with you, because in just a moment, if you don't mind, we're going to share a video that kind of summarizes a little bit what you do in general. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So let me just check with Soham really quickly. Soham, do you think we're good to go for sharing the video, or should I start with some just a light conversation with everybody here?
Yeah, I'll take a minute.
It'll take a minute. All right. Yeah. So just before we start, and since Raymond's going to kind of introduce himself to us, maybe it's kind of cool for everyone to introduce themselves to Raymond and to all of us. So would it be okay? I can see Xavier, good morning from Indianapolis. Thank you so much for that. Just kind of tell us, guys, where you're from. Give him a context so he also knows, and within the context of your coaching journey, whether you're a coaching student, already an accredited or certified coach, it would be nice to just share some ideas. So we can see here in the chat, Mirnal from Mumbai, welcome. So many time zones today. Great.
Okay. I used to live in Minneapolis, just so you know, whoever, Miranda. Yeah.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah, I taught at a university in Indianapolis, sorry.
Wow. Indianapolis. Okay. I was thinking Minneapolis, I'm from St. Cloud, Minnesota, so that was close. Okay.
Yes, I did visit St. Cloud University.
That was pretty cool. In summer or winter? Hope you didn't get freezing cold. All right. So we got a lot of cool feedback here. Guys, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And let's just kind of read through this. So we've got Asha from India. We've got from Paris, a coaching student, is it Mr. Bruno? It's Mr. Bruno Jardin, oui? C'est correct? I'm gonna just double check, because sometimes in France we write the last name first, so I just want to double check because I believe it is correct. Okay, Mr. Madhav, welcome from India. Okay, Corinne from Trinidad and Tobago, lovely to see you all. All right, so I just got the link, and let me just go ahead and open that up. From Riyadh, Ali, okay, pleasure to meet you, Alia.
I didn't realize it's such a wide range of countries. So
yes,
it's nice to meet you all.
Absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Okay, so with your permission, everyone, I'm going to share my screen really quickly, and that way we can take a look at this super cool story that covers a little bit about what Mr. Raymond does. So let me just go ahead and open that up. Okay. Wow. All right. Let me go and share my screen. Share sound. Voila. And I'm going to mute so that we can hear this beautiful story. So Mr. Raymond, of course, sorry, I'm just saying Mr. Raymond because I just really respect what you do. This is your website, right? laborastory.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we didn't get the YouTube, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll use that.
I'm gonna try to just give me one quick second. Everyone, thank you so much for your patience. I'm just verifying that I am setting this up the way it needs to be set up. Okay.
An Instagrammable moment and a Facebook update, and then we have those stories that condense us.
Is this from the beginning? I don't think so. Is it or no?
No.
No.
No. Do you want to do it? Do you want me to do it on my end, or? Because I just sent the YouTube link, but it's okay. I seem
Okay.
to, for some reason.
So Ham, did you get the YouTube link that you could share with me really quickly? Because I have just the web address. Just to double check, did you send it directly to Seham by email or through the chat? If you don't mind me asking, I'm sorry.
I've just sent it to you. Yeah.
All right, just got it. Here we go. I think we're ready to go.
Okay.
Problem solved. Sorry, guys. Technology. My mistake. Here we go.
The sheer volume of stories that we consume on a daily basis, the brain never had to contend with before. Thousands of stories coming at us. Stories in a tiny tweet, in an Instagrammable moment, in a Facebook update, and then we have those stories that condenses the complex French bread-making process into a 30-second clip. And what about those stories that take us deep into the rabbit hole we call episodes and seasons, where we follow complex characters as they take us on all kinds of unimaginable twists and turns? We want our stories in snackable sizes, and then we want the right to binge on our stories for 12 hours straight, anywhere, anytime. We are fat. We are fat with story, and the entertainment, media, and advertising agencies are screaming, "We want stories, more stories." Philip Pullman, the author, has said that after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are what the world needs most. It's a basic human need. We tell stories to ourselves and to one another as a way to create meaning out of the randomness of our lives. You see, the brain processes 400 billion bits of information per second. 400 billion per second. And it can't contain it. So therefore, it is a clever way of organizing that information. And the brain's favorite way of organizing is by chunking. It puts information together. And how does it do that best? Through stories. Because stories have a beginning, middle, and end. Without stories, all this information is just data. It's the story that makes it memorable and a long-term memory in that brain.
Still goes on.
As much as technology is pulling us in fragmented directions, it's also bringing us together. This is why companies like Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest are winning the race here. They are perfecting the art of bringing connective points together. And once we're there happily connecting, they're studying why we connect, what we connect with, making predictions about the future, and hopefully trying to persuade us. There was this great trial lawyer in the US, Mo Levin, and he was fighting this case for a client that had lost both his arms in an accident. It was a long and complicated trial, and it was time for the closing arguments. And as closing arguments go, attorneys usually just present the facts of the case back to the jury so that they remember it and then make an emotional appeal. When it came time, Levin walked up to the jury box and he took an awkwardly long pause, as if he had forgotten the argument. After pulling himself together, he said, "You know, you just had a lunch break. And I saw you, members of the jury, go to your room to have your lunch. And I saw the opposing lawyer take his client out. And I saw the judge and the clerk go out. And so I said to my client, 'Hey, Harold, let's go for lunch together.' And we crossed the street and went to this tiny restaurant. And then he paused again, and he looked every juror in the eye, and he said, 'Ladies and gentlemen, I went for lunch with my client. He has no arms. He eats like a dog.'" Levin reportedly won one of the biggest settlements in the history of New York State. He knew that story can go where quantitative analysis is denied admission. Our hearts. Data can persuade us, but story can fire the imagination and stir the soul. My father was a journalist and a great storyteller. He passed away several months after 9/11, and I was living in New York City at that time. I was a professor of scriptwriting and storytelling principles. He was 65 years old, but Alzheimer's had already been taking him away from us several years prior. I couldn't go back for his funeral because the lawyers had advised me that if I left, they couldn't guarantee that I would be able to come back in because Malaysia was on a watch list. So I was teaching storytelling principles during the day, and at night, my own story was becoming unglued. I didn't know where I was in this new globalized, radicalized digital world. I kept making mind maps of myself, putting myself in the middle and branching out 10 mind maps, 20 mind maps, and 4 years later, and perhaps 10,000 mind maps later, I became unglued, unemployed, and I was living on my friend's couch. This version of fragmentation was something I recognized. Because you see, my father, 6 years before he passed away, was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And now I stood at the door front of my own fragmentation, and I was determined not to go through that door. And so what did I do? I surrounded myself with books. I read everything I could possibly get my hands on neuroscience, on cognitive psychology, on chaos theory, on disruptive theory, anything that indicated how nature organized itself in a fragmented world. And I finally, after reading all of that, got the answer, and it was always in front of me. It was stories. We, as human beings, are hardwired to seek cohesive stories. At the end of my very dark journey, I had come out with a blueprint of the meaning and the role of fragmentation and disruption and the power of cohesive stories. This is the new world, a world pulled apart and pulled together again by the stories we tell.
Okay, so a lot to reflect on in this video. I want to thank you, Raymond, again for coming on to this session to Transformational Tuesdays to share with us your story. Like you said, obviously, like you saw, gentlemen and ladies who have joined us, or ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of this conversation, I've posted on the chat a little summary about Raymond and what he has done. I'm going to share it again really quickly with everyone before I welcome and pass over the conversation to Raymond. Raymond, the floor is yours. We are eagerly listening. Thank you.
John, thank you so much. I always find it really weird to start a video Zoom call with a video on myself. But for some reason, I haven't found a better way to introduce myself and my story in as much condensed way as the video does. So thank you for being patient with us as we got that organized, and also for allowing me to share that. Firstly, I should say that I just traveled back from the Netherlands. And so Malaysia is very strict with quarantining. So I'm in a quarantine apartment, which explains this band that I have to wear. It's my last day being in quarantine. And I'm also not in my normal background. So I'm just in a space that gets me a little nervous because I'm not in my comfort zone. So hopefully we will not have major interruptions and that we will have a meaningful conversation here. But thank you so much for having me. The topic was how to use your fears to have innovative goals and transformation, which is an odd topic for someone who talks about storytelling for, intensely most of my life. It's a consistent true line. I work in stories. I worked first by writing stories, and then I went on to develop films, and then go into film investment, and then since 2018 gone into this world of taking story into what I believe is a big call for not just the corporate world, but also just individuals. This idea that as we get more fragmented in the world, there is this real need for voices to help us bring those fragments together. And we are probably experiencing one of, and I probably in my lifetime, the greatest fragmentation that the world is experiencing. And we're seeing this on political realms, on the vaccinational realms, on racial realms. The world is really grappling with how to make sense of itself, of its own cohesive story, as it finds that it has to negotiate values and negotiate wide concepts of self in a global context, right? And so I found in 2018, when I started this process, I started going to organizations and speaking about this, that something had met this moment, that I was sort of, my experience, in which I talk about in the video, this sort of fragmented mind, was meeting the fragmented mind of the world. I had no sense of whether what I had to bring to the world was going to create much meaning. But I went out in the world nonetheless. I sort of took this message out and have been humbled by the breadcrumbs of my journey, right? So I sort of started speaking to tech companies because they understood disruption in very big ways. And then I went from Malaysia, where I'm from, to Hong Kong, to India, and then to Europe, where a lot of my work finds meaning. I have no idea why my work gets I get re-employed in Europe a lot. There's a puzzle there I'm still trying to try to figure out, but that's where I find myself and a lot of my work resonating. So enough about that. Today we're going to talk about story principles, right? So the fear concept is coming from the story principles. I taught script writing theory for many years. There are two kinds of power of story: the story that you hear and you engage and you feel for, which is what I hope you experienced when you watch the video, but also what I hope you experience over and over again as you are talking to clients, right? The sense of the story they bring to you for exploration, for sort of contextualizing, for understanding, right? They bring their story to you and you are helping them connect these dots. In fact, helping them project better dots for what their stories can mean. And this is the context in which, so let me just now share some slides, which I'm probably going to skip just because of time, but just get to the center of what we're going to do. Let me go to my screen and let me do this. Have I shared my slides? Is this working?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so the Myhejo method, how to use fears to re-script your future. I'm going to move a little bit faster just to save time and get to the core of the message, right? The Myhejo is a tool and a practice combined. Let's skip this 2 points here, and let's go, why fear? When used wisely, our fears, organizationally and personally, can be an evolutionary tool that can help us innovate fast. We'll explore that in a second, right? Why Rescript? This is a method based on script writing and story principles and cognitive narratology. I won't go into a lot of science, but in the last 4 to 5 years, the science of storytelling has met cognitive science. And it's really moving. We can test out what the brain does when the brain is retelling a story, and how do we rewire stories from the brain perspective. Why future? The future requires leaders who can radically rethink how we live, work, progress, eat, rethink the environment, data, capitalism, healthcare, governance. We know this. The future requires heroic action, which is what the word Myhejo means. It stands for the first 2 letters of the words, my heroic journey. And certainly we all feel that we are called to take on heroic journeys in this, especially in the midst of a lot of volatility, complexity, and change that we are going through at the moment. In this session, you will hear a story. I will tell you a story about the 7 stages of transformation. We will apply 3 of those principles in a case study, and we will discuss how to use this as a practice. Good, cool. At any point, feel free to ask me questions, although I have to admit I'm not very good sometimes to look at chat, but please try at least. Boy in the Jungle. Boy in the Jungle is a story we created to describe the 7 steps of transformation. I always say I want to apologize that it's a boy in a world that's constantly saying that boys are getting too much attention, and that distribution has to change at the moment. But this is a story that follows the arc of a coming of age ritual of men, particularly in indigenous communities. So it's a particularly useful metaphor for the 7 stages. So let me tell you the story now of the boy in the jungle. In the indigenous communities of Borneo, there is a ritual when a boy comes of age, and it's a secret ritual. When a boy comes of age, the men of this indigenous community wear masks on their face, and in the middle of the night, they go into the tent where the boy is sleeping with the mom, and they almost kidnap the boy and drag him and his mother to a fireplace that has a huge stoked fire, and all the men on one side with their masks dancing a ritual dance, and all the women in the village on another side wailing and crying and beating their chests as if someone had died. You can imagine this is quite horrific for this young boy who has no idea what is going on. The men then take the boy and they throw them to the women, and the women are clutching to the boy as they continue this 2-hour ritual together. Eventually, the men pull the boy from the women, and they drag him down to the deepest of the jungle, where they've always told the children they should never cross the deepest of the jungle, because there they will be met with a tiger. And if the tiger tastes the blood of anyone, it will come back in search of humans to eat. So don't cross this line. Now they take this boy in that crossed line and the deepest of the jungle, and they tie him there and they leave him there to die. Archaeologists who have studied this ritual will say that if the boy stays there for 7 days, waiting for his old world to come back and save him, he will die. Within 7 days, the boy has to figure out that nobody is coming to save him. And in these days where he's tied up to the tree, all the boy hears, everything that he hears, he can only imagine it is one thing. Does anyone want to guess what that one thing is? I always ask this to the audience and shout out the response. But everything he hears, he imagines it's one thing.
Tiger?
Tiger indeed, because that is the fear that has been instilled in the community, right? So he hears a rustle wind and it's tiger. He hears, some animal, little tiny animal walking across and it's tiger. It's all tiger in his mind. And he remains tied up to this tree, imagining that the tiger is coming. Eventually, he figures out that nobody from his old world is coming to save him, and he has to find a way to save himself. And he unties himself after some vigorous days of struggling with these ropes. And he, instead of running, he goes up and hides in the tree, waiting for the tiger, justifying to his own mind that if he hid up in the tree, at least when the tiger comes, the tiger won't be able to reach him. And of course, now days turn into more days, and he's hungry and he's tired and he's sleepy, and he keeps falling down to the ground and climbing up again and falling, and he's so tired, right? And his entire logic is, I have to hide from the tiger, right? And eventually he falls down and he starts sleeping, and he's so tired, and then he jolts up awake and he goes, what? If the tiger found me sleeping, it would eat me. And then he starts running. Now he's running, and now more days, and probably a week has passed, and he's just running. And I often ask the audience, has he met the tiger? And they say, No, because he hasn't. It's all in his imagination, building up now a crazy frenzy inside of him. Eventually, weeks have passed, and he comes to a river, and he sees himself in the river. And because he's so hungry and tired and weak now, he's unable to recognize himself. And in that moment, he decides that I give up. I'll just lay here and I will let the tiger eat me. I can't do this anymore. I'm too tired. And he goes to sleep. And just as he goes to sleep, he jolts awake thinking, wait, the river, there's a river in my village. Maybe this river is connected to the river in my village, right? And he has no idea, because this is a big jungle and the rivers can take many, many forks and there are many divisions of the river, but it's sufficient enough to give him a sense of purpose. The river is connected. This river could be connected to the river in my home. And then he remembers that when he was, as growing up all the time, when the women went to wash the clothes, the children would make little fishing rods to catch fish. And now he's remembering fish and food, and he wants to nourish himself, and he's using the river to nourish himself, and he's catching fish, and he's losing fish, and he's figuring out how to make better nets to catch better fish, and what can he do to take the resources of the forest, now the jungle, to feed himself in the river. And then he begins to think, oh, maybe I should build a raft. The raft can move me faster in the river, right? So he builds the raft collapses, then he thinks, well, maybe I should build a better raft because I learned from the first raft. And now he's thinking about building a ship. He takes together tools, he's eating, he's sustaining, his body is transforming, months of this focus towards the river and the river taking him home. And I say, eventually, he's enthusiastic about the boat that he's built. And I said, like any good movie, right? And this moment when he's gaining strength, guess what happens, people? And what do you think people answer? So what happens?
The lion comes. The lion comes.
The tiger comes. Yes, indeed, right? The thing that he's most afraid arrives. And I asked the audience, does he run? Because he's run before. Does he run?
No. This time.
Why not? Why do you think he doesn't run this time?
Because he has
New
confidence.
mindset.
It's a new mindset, his purpose, he's become strong, he's eaten, he's re-shifted the energy of who he's become. And indeed, he goes and he battles with the tiger, with the tools that he has when he's building the ship and all that fun, the tools that he's developed. And he fights the tiger and he kills the tiger. And because this is our story and we're still finding ways to make it more applicable, I often say that as he kills the tiger, he realizes the tiger slowly disappears. Because I don't want it to be so bloody, and I don't want the animal rights people to come after me. But he disappears. The tiger disappears, and just in that moment, he looks up and he sees this village, and he starts to run towards it. But as he runs towards his village, a thought comes into his mind, and that thought is, maybe I wasn't loved. Maybe they never wanted me there, and that's why they put me here to die. Here I am trying to get back home, but maybe they don't want me. And if he believes that idea, he may choose to stay in the jungle. After all, he's survived. He's built a little home, he's got his boat, he's eating fish, and he's survived. He may choose to stay in the jungle. The number two option is he's become really strong and he's found focus. He can use that strength and focus to seek revenge on the people that put him there. That's number two. I go back and I seek revenge on the people that put me in the jungle. And number three is the leap in which he understands that he was put here to be transformed. That this was the transformation ritual. And if he chooses number three, that this I understand is the circumstances of my transformation, he will go to the community a peaceful soul. And the community, when he walks in, the women are there welcoming. They were crying in the beginning. They were wailing as if somebody had died because they knew that if he came back, he would not be the same person, that they had lost that little boy, and that they will welcome a new woman. They will welcome a new man back into the village. At night, the community comes together of men and women, and they ask the boy to tell them the story of the jungle. In that transformation, he has a story to tell. This is the story of the boy in the jungle. And in this story, and Hollywood calls this the hero's journey, and many other narrative theories will call, Jung will call this the subconscious, the stages of the subconscious realization of transformation. There are many theories embedded into this particular story that I've adapted. I won't go into those theories. But let's very quickly talk about the 7 stages that the boy goes through. Stage number 1, the breaking of the ritual. For a story to begin, something normal needs to be broken. What is normal in his world before it got broken? Can anyone identify what was normal before it got broken? What was his normal life before it changed?
His home, the village.
Yeah, he was sleeping at night with his mom in the village. That was normal, right? And the breaking of the ritual, what broke the ritual? What broke the normal?
Thrown into the forest.
Yes, but also even before that.
Or taken away from the mother.
Yeah, so taken away. The whole ritual of being pulled out and then being put into the forest is the breaking of the ritual. Every story starts with the breaking of the ritual. A normal is established, and then you break the ritual of the normal. A problem arises, right? The loop of fear, where is that moment?
Imagining the tiger.
Yeah, everything he imagines is a loop. He can only see the world in one way, and that is the tiger, right? The what if moment. This is a bit tricky for some people.
Sees life in one way.
Sorry?
I didn't hear the question.
The what if moment, which is in the story, where is that moment where it's like in the middle of the story, he asks a what if question.
What if they don't come?
He does ask that question, but that's not the what if moment that changes the story.
When he sees the sea.
Yes, the river. The river is the what if moment, right? So he goes and he looks and he asks himself, what if this river can lead me to home? It's the pivotal moment where his imagination reaches a new point of action. Before, the imagination is a loop of fear. Now the imagination reaches a new point of action. Innovation momentum. Where is he innovating and building momentum?
The boat.
Yes, so all the things related to the water, from the fishing to the eating to the raft to the boat, he's innovating, he's using the energy, the experiments, the failures to reimagine in different ways, all pushed by the image of the river taking him home. And the battle, which is quite obvious, is the tiger. And the leap. What is the leap he has to take after the battle?
To go to the village.
Sorry?
To go to the village, to decide to go to the village.
And that is a decision that has 3 options, right?
Yes, the 3 options.
Yeah,
to take
and
a leap.
The final leap is deciding that this was meant to be. This was the transformation he was going to take. Exactly. And by virtue of that whole journey, he comes back and the community treats him like a leader and they say, tell us the story. So that is the structure of transformation that is mimicked in storytelling and mimicked in the way the brain understands new information. I won't go into that, but this is a fascinating study on the psyche, on brain, on new structures of the way the brain puts information inside. In fact, probably we are all actually going through this with COVID. I don't know where we are in the stage, but certainly we know the breaking of the ritual and the loop of fear. I don't know whether we have arrived at the what if moment, but maybe.
I agree with you. I'm on that stage. I'm in
where are you?
I'm in the leap stage.
You're in the leap stage.
Yes, I've passed the break rituals, loop of the fear, the if moments, the innovation momento, the battle. Now I'm in the leap stage.
That's brilliant, and that's brilliant. And you are the answer to you identifying where you are is only right for you. I can tell you in different parts of my life. So even in this particular story that I'm in the evening life right now, I can say in this area of my life, I am in loop of fear still. In this area of my life, I'm battle and I'm in leap, right? I'm there. So if you look at, just for instance, my weight issue, right, which I also test this theory on, right? I am far from battle. Like I'm in like all kinds of fear and what if, and I'm trying to constantly figure out how do I battle with this issue with regard. So people can look at this map and project different things on where they believe they are. And sometimes we are right and sometimes we are wrong. The idea is not that we are right, that we use the map to gauge where I am here. I think I am here. And the coach can challenge, really, are you there? Or maybe you're here really. Do you think you've addressed these issues and stuff like that? But let's just go on for a second, and then we will go back to. I'd love to hear some feedback on where you are in different parts, where you see the story in terms of your own areas and work yourself. But from this map, we have developed a system that's faster. We call it the speed round, right? And the speed round is to identify fear, name the opposite, ask what if, and name the obstacles. So this comes from a script writing theory. If you can identify the fear of the hero that the hero doesn't know in the beginning of the movie, and name the opposite of that fear, you have the beginning and end of that movie. So in Finding Nemo, the father, Marlin, was afraid that if he let his son go into the Great Barrier Reef ocean, the son will die like his mom did and the rest of the family did, which we see in the beginning of that show. If I let him go, he will die. So he was very protective of the child in the beginning of that movie. And the opposite statement is, if I let him go, he will thrive. If I let him go, he will die. If I let him go, he will thrive. And that is the beginning and the end of that movie, if you remember. And in the middle are all the things that has to happen to make that transformation happen, to understand. So the middle is the journey that Marlin goes and Nemo goes through to understand that, the dangers of the sea, and for Marlin to understand that he has to let him go in order for Nemo to thrive as a fish. Right? He can't overprotect Nemo. Now, this idea of opposite, this is the fast thing we do. When I go into organizations, I often tell, so this is the big part of what I do with organizations. I go to great CEOs and I say, what is your fear? Right? And because a lot of the CEOs are men, when I first started this process, and a lot of the leaders, unfortunately, are still heavily male dominated, their ability to access fear is very interesting to watch. Right, the ability to talk about their fears are very, very interesting exercises in itself. And we do all kinds of different exercises to subconsciously get to the fear without them fully understanding. So we've got clever exercises to elicit those fears. But the fundamental understanding is that if you can explore some of those fears, very quickly name the opposite, then you begin to see the world in a possible transformative way very quickly. Now let's use Airbnb as a case study, right? When the CEOs of Airbnb, the founders of Airbnb first started, most of the investors says people will not want strangers in their house. Business travelers will never take this option seriously because they want their wake-up calls, they want their breakfast, they want serious homes. They want to know what their pillow is going to feel like and stuff like that. And most people, when Airbnb first started, the idea is that most people don't have attractive homes, right? That was just the reality years when they first started. And these were the fears. And these fears were articulated over and over and over again to the founders of Airbnb. Now we do the opposite. The opposite is really a ridiculous exercise. The opposite is like, that's it, that's all you do. It's the breakthrough is just name the opposite. So people don't want strangers in their house. People will host strangers in their house. That's it, that's the opposite. Like, oh, okay. Business travelers will choose this option. Okay, that's doesn't sound like a breakthrough. People have attractive homes with design aesthetics. And it doesn't sound like it's such a big deal, but once you understand an opinion that is opposite from your tunnel vision, from your fears, right? Opposite of it, right? The transformative part of it. And you look at those statements, you will begin to see things differently. And this is what happened, right? So in what world is the opposite statement true? Is the opposite statement true? People will host strangers in their house. And Airbnb, when they first started, they found, well, you know, there's such a group as couch surfers. Couch surfers lived in people's couches all around the world. And there are people who actually have bed and breakfasts, you know, couples that have bed and breakfasts. So they started there. They went to the couch surfers and they went to where they could see the truth existing. They looked at the opposite statement and said, what if we took this opposite statement and we made it bigger? We scaled the opposite truth. What if we gave this truth momentum? What will it become? That's how we look at the transformation, right? They looked at businesses and hotels, right? During the Democratic Convention and the Comic-Con Convention, two of the biggest conventions that happen in America. And they discovered that when there are no hotels, business travelers are happy to live in like random places, right? Their friends' homes and just people, you know, people who just open their homes to them. And they started going to these major conventions that would not have enough rooms. And they, you know, chose 10 wonderful Airbnb spaces, or 100 Airbnb spaces, and they just build the momentum of the stories that were told from the 100 people that had this experience in Airbnb. So they look at the opposite and they see how to scale the opposite, how to build truth, more truth from the opposite statement. And what if people were taught how to build beautiful homes? So they realized that in New York, people, the actors, and often the actors are gay, who move to LA to shoot a movie, sublease their apartment for up to 8 months. And they get people always in, right? Because their homes are beautiful and they're very transient. And this is how they started. They went to New York, they looked at the actors and they said, how do we scale? How do we take pictures of beautiful homes? And we scale that truth in a big way. So you see in organizations, that's the very simple, this is the simple task. We have far more complex exercises that we do, but this one is to show you that the fear and the opposite and how do you build momentum of truth in terms of strategy from the opposite statement. And you can see this is also applies to human beings, right? As leaders, when we are able to feel. Now I have, believe it or not, because I become so aware of fear, I'm shocked at how much of fear I really have. I'm shocked at how much fear exists in a lot of my decision making. And now because I have learned this trick of fear, when fear arrives, I know, where did that come from? That's really interesting. And then I do the opposite statement and then I ask, then I ask what if questions. And it moves me in a different direction, my brain very, very quickly in a different direction. So when leaders experience this methodology, they often during breaks tell me that, oh, I wish I knew this methodology when I was going through a divorce. And I wish I knew it when I was going through a serious illness, because I think the map would have helped me understand where I was and what I was beginning to see and how I had to build momentum towards the transformation and not spiral into the fear. And so this is my hope from the Myhejo method, right? So I'm closing here and then I'll take some questions. The future leaders are authentic enough to admit and use their fears as a transformational tool. This is my calling, you know, the more we become authentic as leaders and say that it exists inside of us, and this truth that exists inside of us has a transformational a moment that can be met in a transformational moment. The more I think leaders will become authentic and human and transformational as an individual, right? So that's one of my biggest calling to myself, right? To be agile enough, right, to rescript the future for themselves and for others. You see that this is required of leaders in a massive way at the moment with COVID. This agility to rethink who we are and how we function as teams, and what our tasks mean to us. The agility of thinking to Rescript is important, and that we are explorers of the old, embrace the unknown. Right, we are having to embrace the unknown, and I went to the Netherlands, and the rules changed 3 times from the moment I went on the plane to the moment I came back home. 3 times. The Netherlands had changed the rules twice. Malaysia had changed the rule the moment I land. The complexity and volatility of the world I experienced it in a profound way. And leaders are called to be warriors of the mind. The real frontier that you are engaging with as coaches is really sort of shifting this sort of mindset, but even going deeper than just a mindset, going deeper and deeper and deeper, which is what fears do, right? It just goes deeper into the core subconscious beliefs so that you can transform them. Questions? That is the Myhejo method. So I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much for that. That was really insightful. Just want to say that, and I open the questions to.
Thank you, John. Yes.
Sophia.
It's a really interesting question on cancer coaching here, but yes, please, Sophia.
Yes. Can I say the 7 breaking segments of the transformation to be a leader? Are they can I say, are they the fundamental skills of becoming a leader?
I would think so. I have a bias to believe that they are, because unless you are constantly going through transformation yourself, you don't understand the leadership capacities that are always meeting you, always finding you in every problem that you accept. And I think leaders, true leaders, have this capacity to understand that they are having to confront the better parts of themselves over and over and over and over again. And that by virtue of that is the leadership path.
Within those 7 segments, which one is the one can define somebody to become a leader? Is it the, for me, I think it's the what if moment, because that's the place where if I don't take a decision, I might lose all where I'm going to be a leader. Because the what if moment, there's a lot of choices and assumptions, and that's the place where I get stuck for me. But I would like to ask you, within this 7 segment, which is the most profound to reach that level of leadership?
It's really a really good question. So certainly you've identified that is for me the middle of the story. That for me is the part where the shift happens. Right? Without the what if moment, there is no shift. That what if moment, and I often say the what ifs may not be right, but it's sufficient for you to change trajectory to test, right? So when we're working with organizations and innovation particularly, I say the what if moment is the place where you say, okay, I take this risk, right? And in going there, I may fail 5 times, but at least I'm moving. And the boy, with his raft and all that stuff, he fails. He learns from it, but it's a shift in the way in which he looks at himself. But there is something I want to say about the what if moment. And I think organizations miss this. The transition between I give up to what if. The boy looked at himself and said, I can't do this anymore. And then the what if arrived. And for me, this is underspoken of in organizations because it is almost spiritual. The moment when your capacity of thinking through seeing the world dies and some new capacity merges with you, that inspirational moment is missed in the talking of the what if, right? Because the what if is not just, oh, I can see different possibilities. Oh, I'm great. No. The what if is really the transition from the way in which you see the world to a new way in which you see the world. That one part of that world, one part of that knowledge has to die in order for the truth, for another to emerge. And when I talk about the what if, I think this is really the most important transition, right? Innovation happens, true individual innovation and organizational happen when at the edge of our resources, we find something new. At the edge of our resources, we find the river, right? And then it opens up all kinds of possibilities. So that as you're coaching leaders as well, right? Sometimes it has to come at the edge of their truth before they see something new. Alia, you have your hands up. I hope that answered your question, Sophia.
Yes, hi. It was interesting to hear. I posted the cancer coaching. I'm dealing with my son is dealing with leukemia right now, and we can really relate to the stages of growth, and that for me, I did the cancer coaching. It's a journey of transformation, but you have to have these stages where you go through the stages of initiation and you go through that deep pit where you really fall and you don't know how to get up, and then you need these allies, and they come in so many forms, inside and outside. You need maybe strength. It could be spiritually, it could be a friend, it could be anybody, or within yourself, these strengths that you need to find just to get out of that pit area. And there's when the transformation, you become a different person. I mean, anybody that has cancer, gone through cancer journey, they are changed, and usually to the better. And you could hear, there's a lot of people writing about post-traumatic growth, and that people do grow to be a better person, more resilient, and more after having gone through that cancer journey. So I mean, I like that fear and opposite. I mean, you for me, I don't know, for us going through that transformation, there has to be a part of, when you have an illness, of things that you do not have control over. There has to be a part of some spiritual beliefs that you hold on to find your way. And I think that will lessen the fear that you have somebody that has your back, and there's a lesson in this journey that you need to learn. And I think you stated the story beautifully, and I could just imagine my journey with my son. I mean, like exactly the stages that you went through with this story. I appreciate it.
Alia, thank you so much for sharing that. And I just came back from the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands, what I was doing was working with a university, University of Twente. They have a story lab, and they were a narrative psychology university, and they're working with trauma. They're also dealing with people with illness, and for me, I have a sense that the map is true for them, but I am humbled by the stories they tell me when they look at the map and they say, this is true for me in this ways. So I think what is interesting about the map is that it's as you rightfully pointed out, it's actually states more than stages, right? I have just come to terms with this. These are actually states. The loop of fear is a state. It is not a stage, right? So I think in many ways, I need to rethink the way I talk about this as if it were stages. They're really states, and you can be in their states. You can be high in that state and still have fear, right? And these are what patients tell me, right? I am really transforming, but it doesn't mean the fear just gets smaller. The fear gets negotiated better inside of me. And so that's when I think that you don't move from one place directly to another. These are states, these are emotional states that you can be in. And people who are going through illness, that's what they're teaching me more and more, which I'm seeing. Thank you. Harris.
All right, thank you. So two thoughts came up for me. First is So for the what if to be impactful, in coaching context or the leader, the coaching must make a decision, conscious decision to leave the comfort zone, to leave the old world. Otherwise, the what ifs wouldn't be impactful, and must choose to take a risk. And another thing is that um, the in your model does it assume that the fear will definitely manifest, that eventually he will have to face the tiger, and he wouldn't reach the end of state if, even though with the what if, that he would definitely still face the tiger, the enemy, the fear.
It's a really good question. So yes, firstly, the what if moment is a risk. And the what if moment is asking people to say, take this risk, if inspiration leads, if there's a thought that allows, because why is it a risk? Because you're almost leaving your old world, as you said, right, the status quo, and you're testing a new version of yourself, and you don't know whether that new version is going to work. And I think for what if to be really transformative, it is the capacity to want to test this new thing that without clear certainties. Right, without clear certainties that it's going to work. We want the certainties. When organizations talk about what ifs, they really want the certainty that this track that they're going to move is going to work, and it doesn't. Right, true innovation happens with us taking a form of risk. Now, the question about battle is so important because I think so from an organizational level, right? So there will come a time where in order to be the person who owns the knowledge, right? So if you think about the person who's got cancer, in order to be someone who can retell that story, I often find that there is a battle that they go through, right? I think battles make you capable of being the person to retell that story, right? You have a story to tell, you have something to share because you have conquered the fear of the risk, conquered the fear of the experimentation to meet the new person. And until you sort of embody that sense of battleness, battle stripes that you've struck, you don't really have a story to fully share. But I think it's an interesting question because I think the way in which the battle comes can be not so dramatic. It cannot be as dramatic as the tiger, right? I think all of this can have degrees. Fears can have degrees, battles can have degrees, right? And of course, I think the video tells you something about where this methodology has come. It's the intersection of me getting to the bottom of myself and then me understanding storytelling. It's my own life the story of the boy is coming out of the steps I had to go through personally to come back out, to have a method to tell the world about, right? So until I got through that stage, I had no story to tell.
So if the boy had merely avoided the tiger, not fought it, he might still be transformed. It's just that the transformation degree isn't as big as if he had fought the tiger, isn't it?
Really good question. Yes. So people who go through divorce tell me this. I survived my divorce. We went through this, right? And then I went and married the same person, the same kind of person, right? Because I survived it. I maybe didn't go to battle with why I was the person that deserved the divorce. Right? I didn't go to battle there. I just did this process. But because I didn't go to battle, I looked for the same kind of individual in the next marriage. And this also helped me. So if somebody else helped me, I go, wait. So if you don't do the hard battle work, you may revisit it. Life will give you another opportunity to go around this mountain again. And you may not understand the transformation that you needed to have taken. So, and life is generous like this. It gives us many opportunities to face our tigers.
Sorry, one more, just to follow up on the first one about the what if. So in your workshops, if you notice that the what ifs is something like it's not really good, do you like kind of invite them to check in and revisit whether or not they have left the old world? Do you that kind of check in before letting them go to the what ifs and whatnot.
Yes. So yes, there is check-ins. There are misinterpretations of what is valuable, what ifs. So the map, as I said, has to be very transient, right? So because we will think, oh, we're on the right track, right? And then we're like, oh crap, we're wrong, we're failed. New fear has come. And as soon as new fear has come, you go back to the map. You go back and say, okay, what is the new fear? What is the opposite? So the emotional states will always give you an indication of how to use this, right? That you may, and let me tell you, I am humbled by this methodology because I think I'm making breakthroughs in my what if, and then I am like wrong. And I'm like, okay, that was funny. And it's humbling because then you go, okay, at least I tested it. I know that true, fear arrived. Now let me see what to do. I still have the map to get me to the next place. Yeah.
But it's still worth trying rather than not at all. And then if it doesn't work, go back to the fear.
Because innovation momentum, the boy has no idea that the river is going to get him home. That's the most important thing about that line, right? There are too many rivers. There's so many paths. He has no idea that this river can take him home. He's taking the risk. He's relying, the metaphor of the river is he's relying on some sort of internal inspiration and source. He's going with something that is possibly the flow. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very kind comments. It's 9 o'clock. I know I have to be mindful of time, John.
No problem. I think we have Daniel has a question too.
Okay.
That's possible.
Sorry, I should probably.
Hi, I'm gonna try to be quick then of the time. So the what if moment that mentioned a couple of times now, I think for me it's like when you get stuck in a problem or a situation, we try to solve it so much by intellect. And for me, when you talked about that, Raymond, it's more like giving up. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna come to a solution now and just give it up. And then suddenly we get these kind of wisdoms and great ideas that pops up through when we actually in some kind of way give up on the situation, on the problem.
And what do you feel about that?
Yeah, because it's not like giving up, like, yeah, I'm gonna give up, I'm never gonna try this again, but it's like giving up trying to figure out the right solution. So when we stand in front of a problem, what I do now, before I try to like really solve it using my intellect, but now I like, okay, I try, if nothing good comes, I take a step back, I do something else, and then suddenly a good answer comes to me. Like I get a great idea in the shower, or when I'm running, or when I'm doing something else, because suddenly all my thinking has cleared, and then it's possible for me to actually get the good idea that could take me to the next step. Maybe taking the innovation momentum, because I didn't struggle with my intellect to get it.
That is absolutely right. And the intellect is actually a hindrance, right? So as someone who relies so much on the intellect, I say sometimes our reasoning is tunnel visioned. It's got logic that is very strong, hardwired inside us, inside the story that we're telling, hardwired inside the way we're planning to solve the solution. And the dropping of that intellect, the death of that intellect, the death of the release of that allows for something else to collaborate. So I love the fact that you say, somebody said sleep over it, when I'm running, when I'm stopped thinking of it, when the famous things, right, in showering, something just comes out because there is your own sense of rightness. And that's really important here. Your own sense of rightness as to how to solve this must give in to something else. Yeah. And we don't know how to name this something else, right? Inspiration just comes out of nowhere, but it's something else. It's something else that is not driven from the strength of your own thought process. And so that boy, when he was like, I give up and die, is the death of all those fears that keeps him in one track worldview. And so that something else can arise. So something else can arise. So that something else that arises in him through the river is his own truth, right? But it comes from a moment of inspiration.
Yeah, and I think that's very good for us coaches to help people to let go of stuff and like leave that with the door. All the knowing you have before, all the theories and methods and ideas, leave it. You can pick it up if you want to later.
Yeah.
So you open up for transformation. So yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Great. By the way, these are such fantastic questions. Thank you all so much for engaging. Amal. Do I get that right?
Yes, Dr. Amal. Hi, how are you? First of all, thank you. I saw how you are passionate about your theory, and what I like the most is your smile when you are, your face is very comfortable, and your passion for what you are doing is really showing from your face. I like always to see how the people passion about what they are do and about what they are teach. Thank you so much. I was just finished one of my lecture, but seeing you how you present your topic and your passion about it, your smile. This is, I think, what we need to do as a coach. Do not forget, we need to have a good body language to present our service. Thank you so much for your time today. I really, really enjoy and hope to contact with you in future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very, very kind to say. And I am deeply passionate about this work. One may say obsessed. Yeah, thank you so much. Very kind.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our time, and we really are grateful for you and everyone else for sticking around for the additional time. It's just such an engaging and interesting topic. We thank you for your wisdom, for your story, and for what you've shared with us, because I believe we all have something to take away from. Thank you, everyone, for joining us at CTA and for this Transformational Tuesday. Raymond, we hope we have an opportunity in the future to cross paths again with you. And for anyone that would like to connect with Raymond at any point in time, you can feel free to reach out to the team at CTA. They'll share with you his credentials, and you can also obviously always find him online by doing a quick search. I just Google searched him just to double check if I could say that. And there's just a lot of information. So
just on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay, so on LinkedIn, definitely, that would be a pleasure. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone. We wish you a beautiful and incredible week. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.